Well, Elise Stefanik is part of the Republican House leadership, and she held another press conference.
Welcome to the Republican majority in the 118th Congress.
Oh, thank you, opportunistic infection, Harvard graduate Elise Stefanik. What do you have planned for us in the 118th Congress?
House Republicans are hitting the ground running, and we are laser focused on passing our Commitment to America agenda and much needed critical oversight of the Biden administration.
Great, much needed oversight of the Biden administration. This is important. This is checks and balances, and she's going to investigate the problem at the southern border by getting testimony from Biden's head of Homeland Security, Hunter Biden. Then she and the Republicans are going to investigate how the Biden administration screwed up the pullout from Afghanistan by getting testimony from the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Hunter Biden. Then they're going to go get to the bottom of the origins of COVID by getting testimony from the head of the Centers for Disease Control. That would be Hunter Biden. And then they're going to look into abuse of the IRS by getting testimony from the head of the Internal Revenue Service, Commissioner Hunter Biden. Then Elise Stefanik, this opportunistic infection, she made this solemn promise to America.
We will continue to hold the line and protect the most vulnerable among us.
Well, that's great. She's going to protect the most vulnerable among us. So you're going to investigate the hundreds of thousands of Americans living on the streets and try to figure out how to help them? Or the most vulnerable, you're going to help senior citizens who are living on nothing but Social Security and can't keep up with inflation? You're going to help the most vulnerable, old people who make a minimum wage at McDonald's or minimum wage at Walmart with no help of ever being allowed to join a union? Is that what you mean by the most vulnerable? Opportunistic infection, Elise Stefanik, most vulnerable. When you say the most vulnerable, do you mean our children who are forced to attend crumbling public schools that are understaffed? Most vulnerable, you mean the thousands of Americans evicted each week by greedy landlords, or the families of small children who suffer from food insecurity and are forced to go to food pantries, and these food pantries are empty because there isn't enough money for them? Is that what you mean by protecting the most vulnerable here in America? Do you mean the families in predominantly Black communities that don't have potable drinking water? Elise Stefanik, you opportunistic infection, is that what you mean by our most vulnerable? What do you mean by the most vulnerable?
By bringing the Born Alive Survivors Protection Bill to the floor.
Fetuses. That's the most vulnerable. The most vulnerable in America are the ones who haven't been born yet, according to the Republican Party. Fetuses. So Republicans couldn't care less about anything that's actually alive. The only thing Republicans have to offer for people who are alive are more and more gun-toting half-wits like Kyle Rittenhouse. Well, opportunistic infection, Congresswoman Stefanik, is there anything else you would like to add?
And we are just getting started.
Yes, you are. And that's exactly what I'm afraid of. I'm David Feldman, reminding you to stay strong and protect the most vulnerable.